I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
I'm happy because of being here today. Fuck you.
Come on, you want me to drive? No, you're supposed to be suicidal, remember? I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Let's get in the car.
Fucking shit. Fuck me in the fucking ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Well, here we go again, people. We have to talk about Uwe Boll. Yet again on this channel, another movie from Uwe Boll. And guess what? It's actually good. Yeah. We're talking about one of the rare times Uwe Boll actually made a good movie. Because as you're all familiar on this channel, Uwe Boll is a shitty director. I've ranted on a number of his movies. From either To Seed, to Postal, to Alone in the Dark, to House of the Dead earlier this year. And also just about every other movie he does really sucks. Either whether it's those, or whether it's In the Name of the King, whether it's all the Blood Rain trash. But there are few times his films get a pass. Whether it's the one I'm talking about, whether it's Dafur, whether it's Assault on Wall Street. Maybe-ish the first sequel to this. So Donji Corleone is here with a review for 2009's Rampage. No, not the film from The Rock. Not the one from 2018. The Rampage about an actual shooter. That Rampage. Yeah, that Rampage we're talking about. Apparently, I think Uwe Boll tried to actually sue the Rock film Rampage because of the title, but the lawsuit got dismissed. So, but I think I remember that. But anyway, what's the plot of this version of Rampage? So, this man with this thirst for revenge basically builds this full body armor from Kevlar, and he goes on a killing spree. Really the plot. Not really much of a plot to speak of, but that's pretty much the whole concept of the movie. So yeah, as for my reaction, you know I always rage with Boll in the films on my channel. Epic ranted any of them. Will we be doing that here? No. Because, like I said before, this is one of the rare times he actually did a good movie. This was not experimenting on other genres. This was not making shitty adaptations of video games and other bullshit Uwe Boll is known for. This is actually pretty well done movie. It's not a fun movie per se, but it's pretty well done. And you know something, I don't know why he couldn't have directed stuff like this in the first place. You know? Either this, or Defer, Attack on Defer, or Wolf of Wall, or Assault on Wall Street. Why he couldn't have directed stuff like those. Don't know why he could have did that in the first place. It really couldn't have been that hard to do. Nah, instead he had to start with a bunch of shit video game adaptations. So basically no one takes this guy seriously as a filmmaker. Should have started off with stuff like this. Clearly, but then again, he's also not great as a person either, because he beats up his critics if they try to slam his movies in boxing matches, all because they criticize his POS movies. And it pretty much commits a bunch of tax loopholes so he can keep getting the funding for these films to get made, but then they basically smartened up and wised up on his schemes, and they stopped letting him get away with that. But back then, that's how he was able to keep making films, regardless if they bombed or not. no matter the reception. So, how was Rampage made? So, much like the rest of Uwe Boll's films, this was also shot in BC. Like, parts of the film were filmed in Langley, on a stretch of Fraser Highway, and it cuts directly through the city center. Majority of the film. And when the film was officially completed, it would not go to theaters, but it would get screened at festivals in 2009, and it did get a theatrical release in Germany, but everywhere else, it got released direct to video. And this was the first film from Uwe Boll to gain positive reviews. And there were 2 sequels that it did get. There was a second film called Rampage Capital Punishment and Rampage President Down, both in the 2010s. And in all honesty, I honestly think this is pretty much the one Rampage movie I love. I think Rampage is just a film that it only worked best as just a one-time thing. You didn't really need any sequels to Rampage. You only needed one Rampage film. There wasn't much else left to tell at the end of this film. This really just worked as a one-and-done story. You didn't need to make this a franchise because Rampage Capital Punishment wasn't terrible, but there is times when Capital Punishment gets way too fucked up. Honestly. I mean, at least they still kind of took it seriously, but it's where it starts to get way too preachy at that point, where it kind of just goes into politics territory by that point. Rampage President Down, the third one, I think sucks. That's when it gets way too over-cartoonish and gets even more battered to the politics side of things. And that was supposed to be Uwe Boll's last film before he retired and he joined the restaurant industry, but then sadly, you know what happened in the 2020s, and that shut down his restaurant, and now he's sadly back to making more shitty films. I think wants to make a Rampage 4. Despite the fact that this main character died at the end of Rampage 3, so how can you do that? Makes no sense. Alright, so here are the good qualities in the story and what makes the first Rampage great. So, from all the other shitty films he's done before this, from House of the Dead to Seed to Postal to The Name of the King to Blood Rain, gazillion thousand of them, to Either Alone in the Dark, Rampage turned out to be a good flick that touches on a very real thing that's actually become very relevant today. Granted, there's still some problems with it, but then again, some films like this would have problems, and compared to the other shit he's directed, this was basically, this was a surprise for a lot of his haters. Pretty much, Brendan Fletcher really keeps the movie up, and his eerie presence really adds to more of the ensuing violence. It's smart, but not too smart, and also somewhat believable. And one scene really does stand a lot of times, and it does involve this whole bingo thing, which, for kind of like story like this, you think like with this director, you think this story would be too comedic or too over the top. Well, no, it's really not, actually. In fact, this is actually quite a serious film. In fact, all the violence in this movie is actually not intended to be funny. They actually take this whole story seriously. Like, because here's the thing. This can happen in real life anytime, and it's becoming more relevant in a lot of areas. This whole movie is becoming way more relevant today with everything that's been going on in the real world. So, like, yeah, this stuff actually exists in the real world. This can happen to anybody. And I like they actually took that seriously, and they actually touched up on a topic like this for this movie. And they actually took it very seriously here. And like, they actually made it kind of disturbing. That's one of the things why the movie works. And of course, this movie would have a big impact. Like, the things really similar to the events of the story do happen. Like take a lot of the shootings that happened around the time this came out in either the USA or Finland. And Uwe Boll really does play the cards well and delivers pretty much a social, political, heavy-set movie here. The acting... Okay, maybe the acting's not the top greatest, or not really top tier acting, but it's not really... Oscar-worthy acting wouldn't really be expected in a movie of this type, but Brandon Fletcher plays the lead role well, and it's very remarkable in the lead role. Brandon Fletcher does put on a stunning performance with his very psycho role. In fact, like once this shoot has happened, he becomes an actually very terrifying role. In fact, like this character is actually kind of a terrifying threat. Right there. And like, sure, like there's times when the handheld camera gets a little over shaky. Like, I didn't really want a shaky camera. Maybe like the idea was trying to either tell, not really show much, but I kind of wish they showed a little more and not shook the camera all over the place. Like, I wish they just had a steady cam with this movie, and the movie could have been just that much more cool. Like, handheld cameras are nice, but it's just too much in the film. Like, almost every shot kind of shakes back and forth. I often agree where you kind of start to it's hard to figure out what's really going on. When you look past the camera issue, though, the movie rocks phenomenally. Like, if you had a steady camera, I think this movie could have actually gotten even better positive reviews. Oh, and maybe, like, maybe have a bit more of a proper runtime. Now, anyway, how do we start off the movie? So, this takes place in this fictional town in Oregon called Tenderville, and our protagonist is this 23-year-old man named Bill Williamson who lives with his parents, works a low-paid job as a mechanic. Right there, and he lives kind of a basic life. Like, in the morning, he works out with his punching bag, then has breakfast, and then goes to work, and hangs out with his friend, or goes to the coffee shop, like a basic life for people in their 20s. He's feeling bombarded with all the problems of the world by all the TV sets, the radios, and the outspoken political views of Evan Drentz, like, who seems to be his sole friend. And eventually, though, in the opening scene, Bill's parents ask him that it's time for him to move out. And, well, he kind of argues with them for a little bit, so he's not really a good person when you meet him. And that's the thing, like, the movie kind of establishes that he's not really a good person, per se, because he kind of argues with his parents when they ask him to move out, kind of bickers and stalls, and then basically has to work and doesn't really do his part of the house that much. So, establishes he's not really a good guy. He goes to get coffee along the way, but he gets unsatisfied with the coffee he gets, and he argues with the owner who refuses to refund him. And then, of course, he gets to work, and when Bill's working there, his boss interrupts him. And when Bill tries to ask for a raise, the boss says no. Which, honestly, yeah, it kind of makes sense, because to be fair, Bill's kind of arguing with him. And of course, like, well, even though the boss shouldn't have really interrupted him, he was trying to do some work. But that's where the film kind of kicks off. Rampage is basically a movie about a guy on a killing spree, but Boll adds some depth to it. It's a pretty clever flick. It's not like black and white. There's not really a good or bad guy in the movie. No one's really a hero. Just, like, it portrays how society can be kind of fucked up, and everyone deals with that pretty differently. No, it's not like trying to be a nihilistic version of that stuff. Like, it's not trying to drag you down to depressing either Larry Clark or Lars von Trier. It's not trying to be some artsy-fartsy flick or some torture porn Saw or Hostel wannabe. It's simply just kind of a film that takes a realistic kind of topic and makes it kind of like the story of the film. You have some not bad actors and a bit of a surprising twist in the end. And when it comes to Brent Fletcher, I did like him in Freddy vs. Jason, and he carries the lead role well. And some people think the violence is kind of over the top, but in all honesty, the violence doesn't really feel that over the top, really. It kind of feels like normal shooter movie violence. And plus, because the camera's kind of all over the place. So that's kind of a bit of a problem as well. But, well, not everybody's an Oscar-worthy actor in the film. Like, the actors still do pretty great. Like, whether it's from the rest of the side characters, but Brent Fletcher is easily the one that does the best part of the film. Most of the dialogue even feels improvised. It gives it a natural feel. And Rampage is definitely a brutal, dark film. And, like, if this was made in Hollywood, I think Hollywood would have probably either glamorized the film way too much, or either tried to make Bill Williamson overly sympathetic, despite the fact that the guy is not really a good guy when you meet him at all. And if they try to over-establish him as sympathetic, it would kind of ruin the point of the film. Now, if it's stuff like with Joker and Arthur Fleck, at least you have reasons to sympathize with Arthur Fleck and Joker. Because, for one, the society Arthur Fleck lived in that film treated him like trash. You know, a sign got destroyed, and the boss didn't want to hear his side of the story on that one. And then his coworker tried to give him a gun to defend himself, but then his coworker backstabbed him, got him fired. And then, of course, the whole system he's in, when he's talking to the social worker to get medication, they cut that off, they shut that down. Basically telling the people that rely on that system to screw off. And then, of course, one night I accidentally ends up killing a few little snotty rich workers. And that becomes like national news, like everywhere. And then Arthur learned more about his past, like how this whole trouble started. And that's what kicked off his revenge, in a way. Like, it was basically revenge on the people that treated him like trash. Or helped start all this problems. And it was actually, and it felt very Scorsese-like. That's why it worked. Well, that is until the director got all mad that people liked the film. People just liked the film and decided to make the sequel to ruin all that. But back to this. Right there. Like, Uwe Boll really pulls off the style, and at points, like, well, at first, like, Bill doesn't start off. There's a few minor moments when Bill's not too asshole-like. We'll say, like, it's when him and his friend are at this fast food restaurant, and this waitress serves them, and she accidentally spills the food, and Bill's friend gets mad about it, but Bill's actually kind of chill about it, and actually doesn't get mad at her, and he kind of tells his friend to knock it off. So he's not too much of a bad guy, and, well, he's not really an asshole to his parents, per se. I mean, he doesn't kill his parents, and at the bingo scene, when it gets to the bingo scene, he doesn't kill any of the bingo players. He just kind of points out the number to them and then just kind of leaves. At first, I think he was going to come back and shoot them, but he doesn't. Like, he actually does spare the bingo players because they're clearly not worth the killing, really. And sometimes he kind of knows what he's doing is kind of wrong. But he still does cross the moral event horizon in the film. So when he gets back home, his parents were mad that he didn't come home early because he went to the chicken place with his friend because they were supposed to talk about him moving out, but he promises that they'll have that, and so he prints out fake money and then constructs this whole steel body armor, this ballistic helmet and paintball mask, and then, of course, like a few other weapons. And then, of course, after that, the next morning when they're about to have that talk with him, he tells them that he's going to actually raise some money for college. Because he was mentioning that good news he was going to try to tell them, and he's going to tell them that news. And so they're a problem for that, but we know he's not really going to go to college. How he's going to actually make that money is because he's going to basically go on a crime spree to steal it. So yeah, he makes a few equipment, and he gets 2 submachine guns, 2 pistols, 2 knives, heads to the center of town, and begins his killing spree right here. This is where it starts. Like, this film is surprisingly really short. Like, this is like 85 minutes long. I think, like, I think one of my gripes with the film that I'll get to in the bad qualities is that I think this film was a little too short. Maybe you could have added a few more minutes, maybe like a few, like 10 or 12 more added minutes to the film. Like maybe take the time to kind of build up this killing spree a little bit more. They take the time to kind of build this up. And then it would feel a little more well-developed because the film was like 85 minutes and it kind of just happens right away. Like, maybe have like Bill go through a few more scenarios. That kind of lead up to all of this. But the killing spree begins. And no, I'm not saying like try to make him all sympathetic because while he does have some minor sympathetic moments, he's not a good person in the film. I'm not saying that. Just have, like, maybe like a few more scenes with his parents. Have a few more scenes with his friend. Have a few more scenes of him at work. That's what I would rather see. So, the first off, in his first killing spree, he capacitates the police, goes to their headquarters, car bombs them with this remote-controlled bomb-loaded van, and then he goes through the streets. Like, he shoots people at random with the guns, and he goes back to the coffee shop from earlier. He taunts the coffee shop owner, makes him make the right kind of coffee he demanded, and then shoots him. And then 2 police officers open fire, but Bill's armor, because he built his armor very well, it blocks the bullets and he kills both the officers. And then he goes into this hair salon where these several women are, and he takes off his mask to get a drink. And then basically he leaves. At first it seems like he's gonna spare them. He doesn't shoot anyone and he basically leaves, but just when they think it's all over. But though Bill, you think like Bill would just ignore it and act like they're gonna forget it, but no, Bill realizes that he now just exposes identity to them. And knowing that they're witnesses and the witnesses will identify him, he goes back to bury all the evidence. He basically goes back and he kills them anyway. Because he knows they'll basically identify him to the police. They'll rat him out. That's one of the parts that makes him actually kind of terrifying, because he knows like he can be screwed. He just exposed his face to them. He's got to hide any evidence. He's got to bury any witnesses that could report his crime anytime. Like, anytime. So he goes back and he basically wipes them all out. Right there. And of course, like, the only time the Rampage is funny is a bingo scene. So how the bingo scene I'm talking about goes is, he goes into the bingo parlor, he gets this sandwich, and he does walk up to the host and steals the bingo ball number from the host. Like, hey, I need that. Hey, here's the number, 527. I put that down, I need that. Here's the number, people. It's 527. Like there. And at first, though, I was kind of worried he was going to shoot the patrons there, the elderly patrons at the place, but he clearly decides, like, he just reads them the bingo number and decides that they're not worth the trouble, because they're about to be dead in like a few days or a few years. So he decides to spare them because they're not going to live longer. So he just leaves, though. So there's one minor sympathetic moment he has. Like, he doesn't kill any of the elderly patrons there. He just reads them the number and then he just leaves. Like, the scene does drag for a little bit. Like, at first I thought like he was gonna come back and shoot them like he did the salon, but surprisingly he spared them. Decided they weren't worth the trouble, and he just left and continued on his rampage. Just kind of read them the bingo number and then just took off. So then after that, he continues on the rest of his rampage. He goes to a local bank. And when he gets there, he kills a guard, and he shoots some of the employees and customers that are about to try to attack him. And then basically, he then shoots his gun to just show he means business. And he's like, y'all want to play hero? Huh? Yeah, I didn't think so. And then he robs the bank, and he makes the manager empty the bank safe and puts in a plastic trash bag. And then he goes, once he gets out the bank, he switches the money he stole with the fake money he printed, and he burns that bag in a trash can. And he shouts, "This money's worthless! This money's the problem with this world!" And then pretty much drives off. Like, this is actually quite an intense, well-shot moment. Like, this stuff is very realistic, you know? Like, this can happen anywhere you go. And of course, like, and here's the thing, if you're a witness, they could come back and bury all their evidence. Like, this guy's actually smart. He's not a foolish criminal. No, they don't make him a screw up. And no, they actually buries every single bit of evidence he could find, or any witnesses that can identify him, except the bingo patrons, because they're not really worth the trouble to him, really. Right there, and of course, but like, it's not because of the mass killings, but The reason why is because this film is really entangling, it's brilliant, it's not a run out of the mill film. And it uses the build-up scenes to the rampage, like though the rampage happens a little too quick. It shouldn't really be taken as a slowness, but as what it really is, it's pretty much an act that can really change a lot of stuff. And the acts displayed in the movie and acts like really could get discussed among people as well. Movies are display of what could happen and what always has happened. And there's a point, like, this is pushed to the back of the mind. Like, for a guy that's easily one of the worst directors of all time, Uwe Boll handled this, actually did surprisingly handle this well. Handled this controversial material well, even with a little bit of the over too much wobbly camera work and kind of rapid editing and a little bit, making the film a little too short. Though he actually did a surprisingly nice job with this movie. Especially with a good scary performance from Ben Fletcher, who pretty much goes from normal guy to merciless murderer. A nice little twist ending. Some minor bits of humor, like the bingo scene. The bingo scene was kind of funny when he takes a number from the lady. That part's kind of funny. Okay, that is kind of funny when he just walks up and basically bothers the owner of the place. And, well, what else? When he argues with the coffee shop owner, and he has one minor sympathetic moment, like before the shootout, is when he basically doesn't get mad at the employee at the fried chicken place like his friend does, and actually is calm and chill about it. And he's not like a dick to his parents, and he actually is nice to his parents. I'll admit that. And though these parents don't really know their son, like they don't know what he's up to or what he's thinking or how unhappy and confused he is. Like they kind of just want to go to work, come home, and get rid of their grown son, have him move out because since he's 23. There'd be nothing wrong with that though, but this kid is crazy and they never find out who he is because, well, he has all that armor and he hides his identity well and he pins evidence on somebody else. The violence definitely not going to be kind of violence for everyone. But it's a violence that's kind of powerful. And no, it's not a good, fun kind of violence. No. It's not an over-the-top violence. Like, this actually feels, like, realistic. So, he goes back to the fried chicken place, though, and he kind of blows that sympathetic moment at that place where we saw at the beginning of the film. And he pretty much kills the waitress to kind of reinforce the case that Evan, who had argued with that one, was the killer. So he kind of fucks up his whole sympathetic moment, and pretty much, this is kind of the moment, well, no. The salon moment was where he crossed the moral event horizon. He started to. This is the scene where he really crosses the moral event horizon. It's where he's pretty much law and irredeemable by this point. He then calls his friend. He's in a forest, like, thinking that he's going to get a paintball competition, and then Bill goes to the forest and gets pursued by more cops, led by the sheriff, and Bill kills the officers with explosives and goes to the forest. But Melvoy pursues him because he's the only policeman that survives, and Bill ambushes and stabs him, and he kills him before he can get arrested. And then, of course, when he goes to Evan, and then pretty much kills him with a stun gun, when he tricks him into seeing the money, places one of his pistols in Evan's hand, and basically shoots him in the head to give the illusion of suicide, and then basically frame his friend for the crimes he committed. Then Bill puts the armor suit of weapons on Evan's corpse. Then he leaves the forest and he burns the remaining evidence to hide his crimes right there. And of course, now that he has a fall guy, even though this friend was kind of a dick in his scene, did he really deserve to die? I'm not sure, really. I don't think he did. I mean, the guy was kind of an asshole in his scene, but I'm not sure he really did need it. I don't think he really deserved to die, though. Because it seemed like they did have a pretty good friendship. But then again, Bill kind of crosses the redemption arc by this point. He's basically a full-on villain by now. He burns all his evidence in a barrel. The production is really superb. That's the directing, the acting, the editing, the cinematography, the music, and the scoring. And the pace is really set early in the film. And it really continues to escalate through the final scene. And yeah, it's not a mainstream kind of movie. It's not trying to really be a mainstream kind of movie. right there. Like the full, and heck, even the full body armor Bill has is fucking epic. Like, it's really good SWAT and Spec Ops armor. Like, you can tell the effort went well in that design. Right there, like, and whole, like, Bill really did actually put some effort in this whole crime he was planning. Like, try to hide his identity, hide his evidence. He needed a fall guy to take the fall for his crimes. Like, and he had to go back and kill witnesses that could identify him because he accidentally revealed his face in the place. But the bingo scene decides not to kill them. They're not worth his trouble. But he goes back and continues on the rest of his crime scene because he's after, like, robbing money and stuff. And that's like kind of the thing. He's trying to shoot a rampage across town, not really shoot up a whole bingo place. That's kind of the thing. And of course, like, the realistic the plot and concept is as well, because these guys can show up anywhere. So now we get on with the finale. So earlier during the whole crime scene, he had received a call from his mom. And he lied that he was back at the house, and so he goes back home before his parents arrive, because they have already heard about the killings in town, and they're glad he's home and safe, and while they're conversing with the television and the news then reports that they identified the killer as Evan, and 93 people were killed in his rampage, and Evan then goes into his room and packs his belongings and the stolen bank money. And then, of course, you see this local news report that police arrested Evan's father, but because, like, his son has now been framed for his crimes, and they think his dad's an accomplice. But he tries to claim the innocence of his son, accuses Bill of the crime, though. But because all the Bill's armor is on Evan, and, Evan is dead, and Bill's going to be fleeing town by this point, no one's going to believe Evan's father. That's the thing. No one's really going to believe Evan's father at all, because Bill put the armor on, and Bill buried any evidence that was linked to him and destroyed it all, so Evan's father's not going to get believed in this case. And Bill's pretty much going to get off scot-free. Bill fills a briefcase with the money, and then he pretty much sets off and leaves town. And then the last bit of the movie you get is the story concludes with a home video of Bill deciding that he's going to leave on this quest and then further reduce the world's population, so yeah, this is a chilling way to end the film. Like, Bill's now going to pretty much go commit more crimes around the whole entire world. Like, this guy's off to commit a lot of murders. Ooh. Oops. It's a pretty chilling way to end this movie. And then, of course, you get a text saying that Bill disappeared, and his video recording got found on the internet 2 years after that. That's how Rampage ends. He basically gets away with killing 100 civilians, or nearly 100 civilians. He robbed the bank, escaped his dead-end job, broke free from his parents, and he framed his best friend for all the crimes he did, and dressed Evan in his armor suit, and planted some stolen cash that was fake on Evan. Then Bill counts the stolen money, and he packs up and he pretty much drives off. Drives off ready to commit more crimes. Whew. Yeah. Not a bad, pretty scary way for a simple 85-minute long movie to end. So now we get on with the bad qualities of the movie. So for the bad qualities, the runtime, I feel this film kind of rushed its runtime a little too much. Like, that's what I said. This film should have been like, maybe around the 90-minute mark, or maybe have a few more scenes of Bill's, like, life. No, don't try to make him all sympathetic, because he's not really sympathetic when he first gets introduced. Like, he's kind of already a not really good person. He has a few minor sympathetic moments, but he's not really a good guy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, have a few more scenes of him in his dead-end job. Have a few more scenes with his parents. That's what I'm saying. And then, like, maybe, like, take a bit more time to show, like, Bill kind of training for this whole shootout. Kind of, like, prepping stuff. Like, have a few more of those scenes, because he had some pretty cool home video scenes in the film. The camera also is kind of all over the fucking place. And it's impossible to really make with what's going on. Like, I really wish you could have just held the camera steady in these scenes. There is some subpar acting from some of the cameo actors in the film. But other than those, Rampage, I think, is actually one of the few rare times you could actually watch and buy an Uwe Boll film for your collection. I'm surprised I'm actually saying that. But I actually think this film is worthy of owning. So in the end, Rampage is an Uwe Boll film that I think can go in your collection for sure, no doubt, because it's one of the few films that actually he's done that actually feels like you could actually take this seriously, especially because of how relevant this film is becoming in today's world. Anyways, that's it for my review of Rampage. If you want to go Rampage, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, even if you hate Uwe Boll films as much as I do, well, don't worry, because this is one of the few times where he actually can direct well. So I would add this for your collection for sure, no doubt. And if we're going to go Rampage, I'm going to give Rampage an 8 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That officially wraps up my review for Rampage. Now, I want to know in the comments down below what you guys think, those who have seen this version. And no, not comments from people who are asking about the Rock version. Or some of you are probably thinking that I'm reviewing the one with the Rock from 2018. No, this is the Uwe Boll one I'm reviewing. Tell me in the comments down below of that Rampage of this Rampage I'm reviewing. If you have seen the film, whether you actually like this movie or whether you think it's another bad film Uwe Boll's done. And until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe to Don G. Corleone.